Good afternoon, this is Felicity, and I'm speaking to you from my library. This afternoon I thought I might show a piece of my library that is quite unlike everything else that I've done pretty much so far. And these books represent a part of my life that has nothing to do with reading. Well, has something to do with reading, obviously, because they're books, but they are my books for design and not so much in this case craft, although couple of them kind of are, but these are more about design, and I probably don't need quite so many books on design, but they are the things that feed my imagination for when I am thinking about designing something new to make. I have a few sketchbooks that I may, if I feel brave enough after I'm done, I may show a piece of them. That is what happens after I've looked at enough of these amazing books. Anyway, I'm going to start with the granddaddy of them all, and that is the wonderful book that I had fixed at the end of 2020. It had been unfixed for quite some time, and that is Owen Jones's Grammar of Ornament. This particular edition, yes, it's been reprinted in various inexpensive and beautiful publications, mostly Dover, but some other ones. This is the second edition, Bernard Quaritch, published in 1868. Second edition, and it is the complete. Alas, the book had suffered quite a bit, as you might say, the depredations of time and usage, and it is missing one page, not because it was taken. It's not a terribly interesting page, but it is missing because this book was unbound for a very long time, and a lovely relative of mine gave it to me because they couldn't think of anything else to do with it, probably because it was in bits. But this is, oh my goodness, this is a classic. This is the book on design that any of the other ones were actually copied after. So Owen Jones, The Grammar of Ornament. I'm going to be really careful because this page has definitely seen a lot. But this right here is quite astonishing. It was, let's see if I can give you some sample pages here. Any page I turn to is amazing. So they go through various different periods. My wonderful book restorer and binder put slip pages between them all again. So for example, this one says Indian number 3, and these would be patterns. Owen Jones went through and probably had a couple of assistants, and went through books and statues and museums and artifacts and other objects and found all of these patterns and designs. And this one is one of the originals. This book is the source of many of the other ones that I have, although a lot of the ones that I brought out today actually have some unique things. This one, that's Indian. There's a whole section on primitive, which is an amazing thing all by itself. But I don't think I can show them all because there's too many. Egyptian. All right, not all the slip covers got hooked in there, but let's finish this before my lovely man goes retires forever. Egyptian, Baroque, Roman, Moorish, Persian, Celtic, just a little bit of everything, and it ends with some floral things. So this is an endless source of inspiration for just pure out design, nothing to do with jewelry, nothing to do with any particular thing, just inspiration for patterns. Patterns are things that don't necessarily exactly turn into something, but they are oftentimes the source of something interesting that I hadn't thought of before, something pulling one design to another design. So that is Owen Jones's Grammar of Ornament. This is currently one of the prides of my library. All right, so another book that I've actually mentioned in one of my videos because it is a very important book to me, and that is, I think it might have been some of my favorite things. I forget which one it did. Anyway, this is Opie Untracht's Jewelry, Concepts and Technology, and this is one of the must-have books for people who are in the jewelry and jewelry design business, hobby, trade, profession, teaching, whatever, because it's a big fat book, and it has Concepts is a really pretty tame word for what this one has. And just as to give you an idea, the table of contents, museums contents are forever, and they're very, very explicit. Very explicit. This is everything anybody could ever want to know about how do you make it, what tools do you need, how do you solder, how do you design, what tools do you need for soldering, what materials do you need to make, why jewelry. And every single page, almost without exception, has, in addition to how do you do this, pictures of saws. What does a saw look like? Oh, look at all the different saws. So these are, he went through, and so he's obviously done tons of research because he didn't invent the saw, but he went and he found pictures to show you all in one place many different kinds of saws. This is a jeweler's saw. Yes, I've got one of those. I've got two of those. And the different sizes of blades. And then every few pages or so, sometimes every page, there'll be pictures of jewelry, usually very fine jewelry, fine things that somebody has made that you can see. This might be an example of what he's just talked about in the book, or it might just be put in there because he had all these wonderful pictures of jewelry that have been made, the silversmith's art, all of the tools. There's black and white pictures. There's even some, it's not really design, but he does show some patterns of things. For example, he's talking about Mokumigane and showing some of the patterns that are used in doing it. And of course, he has a picture of some jewelry along with it. So I got the book. It was quite expensive. Can't remember how much, but I don't really care because actually this is a really important book. And anytime I am wanting to make something, make some jewelry, make some silver piece, some metal work piece, and I've just run out of ideas. I can't think what to do. I usually draw first and then make. I will pop through this book and kind of look through and say, hey, I can't think of anything. And I'll turn to a page. Sometimes I'll open the book at random and I'll say, whoa, what's all that about? Well, I don't know, but that looks really interesting. Maybe that could be something that I could work on. Maybe not. And maybe that wasn't the page that I needed to spur my imagination, but maybe this is, oh look, rubber molds, casting, something else. Every single page with a whole bunch of, really for the time, pretty amazing color photographs. And he didn't shy away from far out really interesting jewelry that was fairly modern. Opium Draft is dead now. This particular volume was originally, this was originally printed in, I forget what this one was, 1982. There you go. Jewelry Concepts and Technology, a very important work, a very heavy one, very important work for silversmithing, metalworking, jewelry design, mostly jewelry, but a lot of things that could be gone to for anything. All right, so those are two great big heavy ones. I had a couple of other ones here that I always never work from content to content, it's by size. So here's another one. This is the next biggest one. And this one, I think this one was a really delightful reprint of Eugene Gresset's Plants and Their Application to Ornament. And this was, I think this was a Chronicle publication. I saw it, I just wanted it. This is the Gresset I don't have. I think I have some Gresset, again, probably a Taschen reprint. And the original would be outrageous. It would be amazing to have, but why? Because I really only want this for very specific, I want this for design ideas. Gresset was a teacher. His students did most of the work on these, and they're all credited. And look at this. Yeah, so I had to, maybe I ran out of some ideas about what I was going to do with the design, or maybe I wanted to do something with a particular kind of flower. And although not every flower is in here, some of the more important ones are. And these are actually gorgeous. So to get up a little bit closer, the printing is beautiful, and the detail is very clean, and the work that was done by the publisher to make sure that they were reprinted correctly was quite meticulous. Anyway, this is a gorgeous book, and they go from very they go from the basic idea of the actual plant. I'll find a good example. So for example, wisteria. It starts with a nice sort of botanical style drawing, painting, somewhat stylized, but this, you recognize this is definitely wisteria on the vine. A little artistically tended, but kind of recognizable as a thing growing. And by the time you get to the end of the section on wisteria, it has gone through some design changes. So these are some things that Grasset students under his tutelage figured what you can do with the design elements that are inherent in, say, wisteria or columbine or daisies or every other possible kind of plant. So this one is also a source of inspiration. I do sometimes start by copying a flower or copying a pattern, and then I'll sit in my sketchbook and start doodling, and it turns into something of mine. Sometimes. I used to do that more than I do now, when I was a little bit less employed in a company and was more at leisure, less money and more at leisure to do my own thing. Here's one. So this is another thing. I used to do more tidy calligraphy kinds of things, not really, but just for fun. And this is a neat book. Because it's letters, and sometimes I've done things with letters straight on. Sometimes I just really, really, really like the patterns that show up. I'm going to get up close. Yeah, Book of Kells, Book of Everything, Books of Hours, Illuminated Letters, very illuminated. And just looking at them, you can see, well, you know what, maybe you don't care about M, but maybe those little flowers are just the thing you needed to kind of get your inspiration on. Well, how about that? These are just wild. All right, there we go. There's N's, but there's really a lot more to that than just N. There's all these crazy squirrels and birds and saints and crazy animals and squiggles and vines and everything. I think I finally figured out how to do medieval vines from books like this. So there you go. This is illuminated initials in full color, and this little guy here is a Dover reprint, which I have a very large number of these Dover reprints because Dover is affordable, and Dover's printing is also very respectable, and Dover spends a great deal of time finding public domain artwork, lots of different kinds of things, books, but for my purposes, artwork that can be amalgamated into books for hobbyists and books for designers and books for professionals that maybe it doesn't matter what happens to the book. But so the illuminated initials in full color, design inspiration. All right, so then so I can admit my various I might like to make things, and it's pretty much mostly it's hobbies that turn into hardly hobbies if you actually make money at it. And then sometimes the money making is just in order to afford a bit more materials for making more things. Although at this stage I think I have enough materials to start a large industrial manufactory of something. I have enough fabric and beads and silver and copper and wire and tools to start a business. Well, there you go. All right, so this is Traditional Floral Designs and Motifs, another very nice Dover reprint. I have a lot of them. This is one that I've probably found more useful over a long time because I also do some embroidery. I like to have that as an option. Sewing, using a pattern to sew small beads with, or even just to stylize and use in a jewelry design, or just because I feel like doing little squiggles. This is again really useful. These are all sort of like white, black and white, just outline type of drawings. Some of them which are going to be not so helpful, but when you get right up close, you see, well, so I needed a little bird. Sort of little bird. So I needed a little bird. There's some little birds, and they come from a lot of different sources. A lot of them are, these are more, I'd say 18th century, some 19th century, but they've been stylized. There's a number, for example, the flower here that looks a lot like the early colonial and even some of the 17th century tapestries that I've seen. they've just made them, cleaned them up, made them into line drawings that can be transferred by whatever means you want onto the material that you want to use, whether it be metal or fabric or whatever. So this is a handy book. I've got quite a few. I do actually go through them when I have a particular idea in mind, and I'll go through probably 25 books or so until I find the thing that I'm looking for. I just look at them because I'm bored or because I can't think of anything else to do, and I look at all the pretty pictures. There you go. All right, so these guys here are a little bit more serious. These are very specific things. This one is another Dover reprint of a really, actually, I think a very famous couple of books. These are very extensive and possibly exhaustive collection of Japanese crests. And yeah, I'm not going to start making Japanese traditional kimonos or swords or anything else that require crests, but oh my goodness, the patterns are perfect for silver work. Perfect for silver work. And even for some more abstract designs, when I was doing more drawing and painting and color pencil work and so forth. These are, they do come, I don't have Japanese, but it's translated at the beginning. They have design groups, for example. They do have many family similarities. And for example, you can look up at the beginning and say, I'm really interested in seeing about a family. I think that one's at the back. But for example, the different sections will have mistletoe, phoenix, rice plant, ginkgo, and this tells you if you're looking for a particular plant or a particular style of design in the ornament, in the crest, then this will tell you where you might be able to find it. Begins on, English translation, handy enough. Japanese transliteration, very handy. Really a lovely book, and there are, I don't know, 4,260 illustrations, and that is all. So this was compiled by the Matsuya Peace Goods Store, and I've seen it might have even been Jason on his the Curious Eye site might have actually had this or a piece of the original one of these for sale, and I was kind of tempted for a little while, but again, the only thing I do with these designs is use them as inspiration for making something. Things I want to collect in the way of books are more literary, mostly. All right, Japanese design motifs, 4,260 illustrations of Japanese crests. This is another very useful book. That actually is my second copy. I think I had one before that just plain old fell apart. And there's a couple more. There's a couple more here, and then I have one that it's just really weird, but I turn to all the time. So this one is a really beautiful book. This one is it was kind of pricier than I expected, but just gorgeous. This is Complete Pattern Directory, and this is 1,500 designs from all ages and cultures collected by Elizabeth Wilhide. And this one, I'm reading the back as you see the front here, featuring profiles on dozens of influential designers: William Morris, Isola, Voici, Straub, Mackintosh, Charles Rennie Mackintosh, Pugin, Timorous Beasties. Just about everybody you can think of is in there, unless of course they're not in the public domain, but these are all older guys. And you get let's find somebody we all know. How about Mackintosh? And you look them up, and this is by style. Yes, you see designer profile. Do we actually have, I forget where he's profiled, but we'll just start somewhere near the beginning here. So profile looks sort of like this. William Morris. Okay, well, we do all know the William. So you're going to see a lot of different patterns with William Morris. I believe that the organization is chronological, so you go from the earlier designers to the later. I've not looked at this for a little while. For a while, I was just pouring through it. So, and the designs would have been used for all kinds of different things, maybe for embroidery, maybe for wallpaper, maybe for printing on fabric, maybe for, see, what does it have? I actually think it says, so for example, wallpaper fabric, well, this would be Morris, so that's not surprising. Fabric sample. Dear, is it just, I had better not get started because I'll just start going through it and going through it. But this is a really good example. So maybe I'm not going to make wallpaper, but look at those lovely designs. And I might say, you know what, that's a really fun thing. And it might turn into a little design, and I might kind of simplify it. And then eventually, sometimes I think, well, these drawings I made aren't really much of anything. And then I go through sometime later and say, oh, which direction was I going with this? Hey, I should pursue that a little farther. This was pretty good. Sometimes time is all there is for card. This is from and then, so this is two more. This is from, this is one of the, I think this is called, yeah, Wooden Books. Wooden Books. Designer is a set of 5, how many were in this one? Designer was a collection of 6 different books that were originally published as really cute little small pocket-sized books that talked about different kinds of designs. And you can see from the front some of the things that are in it. The chapter titles are Celtic Pattern, Islamic Design, Curves, Perspective, Symmetry, and the Golden Section. And each one of those sections will start with what it's about, and every single one of the chapters or the areas, each one is by a different author, will have, as you can see, will have not only the pattern as it evolves in the end, which is this guy down here, but it shows you how you get there. And I found this really useful when I was working on trying to turn a image I saw of a lute. Of the lute rose, the design in the middle of a lute, the sound hole that's all is incredibly well decorated. And I decided that I needed to have it become a pendant, and it did, and it was pretty glorious. Although it took forever to make. So this one has that's part of the Arabic, the Moorish design. The Celtic design does the same thing. I have actually a lot of other books, some of which are more helpful for designing Celtic patterns of your own. I think Bain or Meehan, I think it was, is one of them. But these are, pardon me, my computer decided to make messages at me here. Can't see it, but I can. Very irritating. But it is kind of neat to have these formal designs broken out into how they work out of a grid or some other way, so that you can draw your own. And I've done some of that, and that's really fun. Anyway, so Designer is a pretty handy reference book, and also mighty pretty, really, really nicely made. Again, it's a whole series called Wooden Books, and if anybody's actually interested in this sort of thing, there's other things besides just these design ones. They have, I think there was one on some instruments, some really curious instruments like a harmonium or something. Somebody gave that to me, and I think I have it somewhere. But this one I got myself because it's pretty handy. The last one is another Dover reprint of what was probably a pretty useful basic manual at the time. This is Rose and Sereno, and it's reproduced with all the very old style photographs, but this represents sort of the Art Nouveau craftsman style of design, which it really floats my boat. It's the kind of design that I really enjoy, and I never get tired of trying to make more of it. It also, of course, gives very specific designs for turning it into jewelry. Plus, it starts at the very beginning, telling you how to do things, and so there are very basic designs at the very beginning. Are for people who are just starting to do saw work, just starting to do design, just starting to set their first stones. That being the brooch, flat wire scrolls, and piercing. Then that's it starts. Oh, it has pictures, mostly guys, but a few ladies with very, very inappropriate cuffs. working at the tools. It is supposed to be a manual to help you get started making jewelry. And yeah, the photographs are mostly terrible, but the items shown in it are not terrible. The items in it, you poke your way past the fairly poor photography, and you see the design, and that is what is useful. This actually, this is my second copy of this one. The first one kind of wore out, but this is definitely one of the more useful books, and it has it again like Designer, but with more practical application. Shows you how to lay out your own templates if you're thinking to start designing the kinds of divisions that are going to be helpful when you're depending on what kinds of things you're doing. If you are a person who likes symmetrical designs, which I mostly do, and then here's some of the ways that it may actually render out. So there you go. This is Jewelry Making Design by Augustus Rose and Antonio Serino, and this is another Dover print. I'm very grateful to Dover because there's a lot of things that I would not have if they hadn't reprinted them. Some that I keep looking for originals in original printings, but I don't have that kind of a job. All right, anyway, so there we go. That was today's little show and tell with books are my design things, and some of the things that happen to those designs once I start scribbling away are, that is one of my sketchbooks. Some of them are whatever, and some of them are more interesting. So, oh look, a ring. I don't really make very many rings, but what would happen if I did? And then sometimes if I'm actually if I've actually found a book or something, I will actually say, this is from a book that I was looking at, and this was a design that appealed to me, so I was basically sketching it as I saw it. Other things, for example, the ones at the top of the page are, again, more ideas, just what does this design look like? Like as not, 95% of anything that's in the sketchbook is never going to turn into anything. But if you don't draw it, you're not going to imagine it. And sometimes it has nothing to do with it at all. It's like, well, you know, I feel like doing something something weird, something strange. How about a little house? Why not? That's a thing. So I've had some. Sometimes I'm just sitting around, not really thinking of anything else. I had a photograph. This one here. So this was an oddity, but this was actually one of the more interesting places I visited in Berkeley at one point. Was a lady who has it. She's a sculptor, and her whole garden has turned into a museum. Not a museum, but an example of her art, because everything is in it. Every sculpture, everything that she's done with a garden, everything she made and did, and she used all kinds of materials that were done. And so this one here, she was using, I think it was either bowling balls or glass fishing balls, and she had all these crazy, amazing ceramic pieces. It looked like it was growing, but it was all glass and metal and ceramic. Very, very amazing. So there you go. This is what I do to capture something that I was just looking at, and then maybe that turns into something else, or maybe it doesn't. There's a few in here. Sometimes they're not very interesting, and sometimes I just do one, and sometimes, oh, I don't know. It's like this is a botanical garden, and sometimes I remember to date them, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm working on something specific. Well, I don't think that I was in the garden for this one. This is a little too perfect. I was probably looking at maybe a photograph that I had taken, or something from a book. Probably a photograph I've taken. I tend not to. If I do from a photograph, I prefer to use my own, because then I know that I know that any mistakes I've made on my own. So there you go. I'm sure that I was looking at something Celtic, and I decided I'm going to try an animule. So then I'll go back and I'll say, well, this is kind of dull. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of clueless. And then I'll come back a while later and say, you know, that was actually kind of neat. I think I could use that for something. So there you go. Felicity Sketchbooks. Somewhere in the house, things have gotten lost a little bit because all the books got moved around. But similar to this house, I have a giant stack of sketchbooks that I've done that are just, just piled up over the years, and one of these days they'll come popping out and I'll say, aha, there it is. Anyway, little different subject for today. I don't probably don't spend too much time talking about crafty things, because mostly if I'm doing crafty, I just do it. But I do have some very nice books on crafty things, and I am definitely showing off some of them today. So there you go. Thank you for watching, and have a good afternoon, and see you next time. Bye-bye.